Good evening, all. Welcome to TCS NQT 2026 coding training, day 6. Hope you are all doing well. So, hope everyone applied for TCS NQT 2026 examination, free registration. Yes, sir, no? Am I audible? Yes, am I audible? Right. So, if anyone not yet applied for TCS NQT, so try to complete the application process as early as possible because the site may uh, become busy as the time passes. Okay, and the examination is going to start from 10th March onwards. Okay, even though the last date is 20th March, but examination, online examination may start from 10th March onwards. Okay, so that's why. So it is better to get a slot, examination slot as early as possible, so that your interview will also be scheduled early. So in today's session, we'll try to solve one important problem. Okay, so as I said, two questions you need to solve in 90 minutes. Question one is easy to medium difficulty level. Okay, mostly it is from arrays and strings. So today we will try to solve one such a previous coding question. So let me share the screen to you. So this question asked in 2022 examination. Okay, so day 1 and slot 2, question number 2. And the question is like this: given an integer array ARR of size n, the task is to find the count of elements whose value is greater than all of its prior elements. So here we are given an array of size n. Okay, so our task is to find the count of elements whose value is greater than all of its prior elements. Prior means before. Okay, so all the elements which are present before that elements, and if it is greater, then such elements you need to count and print its count value. Okay, so there is a note also given in the problem statement. First element of the array should be considered in the count of the result. Okay, so irrespective of the previous elements. Okay, so the first elements, even though there are no previous elements for the first element, but the first element must be included in the count of the result. Example given here. So an array is given with 5 elements like 7, 4, 8, 2 and 9. Then the explanation is also given for the output here. Okay, so as 7 is the first element. Okay, so this is the first element, it will be considered in the result. Okay, so that means the count value becomes a 1 here. Okay, this is one element you should count. Then 8 and 9 are also the elements that are greater than all of its previous elements. Okay, so here, if you observe this given array here, 8 is greater than all of its previous elements. Okay, so what are the previous elements before 8? 7 and 4. Okay, so now 8 is greater than 7, 8 is greater than 4. Okay, and also if you see this element 9 here, if you see this element 9, and it is greater than all of its previous elements. Okay, so that means we identified two such elements here, 8 and 9. Okay, that is what given in the explanation. Okay, so since total of three elements, 8, 9 and also 7 first element, so these three elements present in the array. Okay, so which meets the condition, which satisfies the given condition here. Okay, so since the output should be 3 here, you must print the output as a 3. Okay, so from this sample input and from this explanation, okay, so you should understand at least 50% of the problem statement. If 100%, if you understand, it's well and good, easily you can solve the question within no time. Okay, but at least 50% of understanding you should get from this explanation. Okay, so remaining 50% you can get from the given sample input and output. Okay, so here an example input is given. Okay, so 5, how the input looks like, it is given here. Okay, so 5 is given, the first number, it is nothing but the value of n. Okay, so which is nothing but size of the array, it represents the size of the array. Okay, so that means always the first number represents the size of the array. Right, so then you have 7 here, which is nothing but value of array of 0. This is the first element. Then 4 indicates value of array of 1, second element, and 8 is value of array of 2, next element, and 2 is value of array of 3, and 9 is value of array of 4. Okay, so like this the input will be given in each line. Okay, so then the output should be printed as a 3, and these are the constraints. Okay, so the size of the array should be between 1 to n. That means the array must contain at least one element and up to 20 elements. Size of the array should be only up to 20 elements, and the elements of the array, 1 less than or equal to array of 5 means these are elements of the array are between 1 to 10,000. Okay, so they are between 1 to 10,000, not more than that. That's how the public and private test cases will be designed. Okay, so no need to worry if the array of size 0 is considered. No, there won't be any test case where the size of the array is 0. Okay, so that kind of test case is not provided. Okay, so they follow these constraints, and all the test cases they design based on these constraints only. Okay, so no need to write any extra code for such kind of boundary conditions. Okay, so don't worry about array of minimum size, one element, at least one element will present in that, and that becomes the first element, and the count should be at least 1. Count value should be at least 1. Got it? And the elements of the array are between 1 to 10,000. Okay, so array elements contains between 1 to 10,000. Okay, 0 may not present in the array. This we should understand from the constraints. Okay, array elements don't contain this 0 as an element. Got it? Then there is another example also given, input. Okay, so here the size of the array again 5 here. Okay, so then the elements in the array are 3, 4, 5, 8 and 9. Then the output is 5. Okay, so from the example 1, if you have worked out some logic to find out the count value. Okay, so from the second example you can apply the logic and get this output on your own. Okay, so for second example no explanation will be provided to you. Okay, so from this example you should apply the same logic and get this output. Okay, so until you arrive at this output, you work only on this examples. Don't go for coding. Okay, so don't write code without getting this solution. Okay, please remember. So some students, they in hurry, they start writing the code without understanding how to arrive at this output. No, you will be stuck in between. All your time will be wasted. Okay, so better you work out the logic so that you can derive this output from the given input. Okay, so how we can arrive at this logic? Okay, so let us work out this example. Okay, so first array we will consider containing 5 elements. These are the 5 elements: array index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so this is our array containing elements 7, 4, 8, 2, and 9. Okay, right? So the first element becomes, so how do we find out that logic? You should develop some logic here. Okay, so how we should find out that such one element is greater than all of its previous elements. Okay, what we need to do? We need to develop the logic for that. Okay, so what we should do? No doubt, we should traverse the array from first element to last element, up to last element. You should traverse this array. Okay, so that means you should use a loop here. Okay, so for traversing, you should use a loop that is confirmed here. Okay, so we want to store count value. Okay, so initially we take count value as a 0 here. Okay, then we start processing each element from the array. Okay, so we consider this element, the first element, as a 7. We will read from the array and store in a variable called as element or something. Okay, then we need to store previous elements. Okay, so no need to count, compare with all previous. For example, if 8 is there. Okay, so I'll take a different color pen. Okay, assume that you have arrived at 8. Okay, so it is not required to compare with all previous elements whether 8 is greater than 7, whether 8 is greater than 4. As you process this array, okay, so it is better to store a maximum of these. Okay, maximum of these previous elements. If it is greater than maximum of these previous elements, obviously it is greater than other elements also. It is understood. Yes or no? Okay, so 7, 4, which is maximum in this? 7 is the maximum one. Okay, so if your 8 is greater than 7, okay, so it is obvious that it is also greater than 4. No need to compare this. No need to compare 8 again with 4. Okay, so that's how, if you process the array, then your code becomes more efficient. Okay, generally what the students do is they start comparing again with all the previous elements. Okay, so what happens then? Your time complexity increases. Okay, so it goes to order of n square time complexity, which is not advisable. Okay, so always you end up with the order of n time complexity. Traversing array once contains order of n time complexity. Okay, so how we can do that? For that, see, if 7 is the first element, 7 is the first element, then we need to compare with its previous maximum element. So for that, what we do is we initially take a variable called as a previous max. Okay, and we assume it as a 0, because already from the constraints it is known that array elements does not contain 0. Okay, so that's why we take previous maximum element as a 0. Okay, then once you have defined these two variables, now process the array element by element. Now you process first element 7 I am taking here. Okay, so now what I do, I compare with the previous maximum element. As I said, if you compare with the maximum of the previous elements, it is enough. No need to compare with all previous elements. This you should remember. This point you should remember. Okay. So always what I do, I store this previous maximum in a variable called as previous max. Previous max indicates maximum of all the previous elements of the current element. Okay, so you can call it as current element or whatever name you want. Okay, so current element, you can name it as current element is equal to 7. Okay, so now what I do is I always compare a current element with a, okay, so whether 7 greater than previous max, 7 greater than previous max, yes. Okay, so then that means I got one element which is greater than of all its previous elements. Then immediately what I do, I increment the count value. Okay, so count value, I say count is equals to 1. Count value becomes a 1 here because I got one such a element here. Okay, so count value is 1. Okay, so I store a variable called as a counter, initially 0, now it becomes 1. Okay, then if 7 is greater than previous max element, okay, so for the next element 7 becomes the previous max element, yes or no? So also what you need to do, you need to store this 7 in the previous max. So previous max is equal to, now what you need to do, you need to say current element. Okay, so I draw one more memory diagram. Okay, so this is previous max. So previously it was 0. Okay, now previous max is equal to current element means now it contains a 7 is the current element. Now it contains 7. 7 becomes the previous max element for the next element. Okay, so that means first element processed. Now you go to the second element. Okay, so next element is what? Next element is a 4. Okay, so now you compare, this is second step. Okay, so this is first step, first iteration, then second iteration. So compare 4, whether 4 greater than a previous max. What is previous max? 7. So 4 greater than 7? No. Then this is not executed. Okay, so still previous max contains 7 only, count value is 1 only. Then process the next element. So what is the next element? 8 is the next element. Okay, so third iteration, compare whether 8 greater than 7. Yes, 8 greater than 7. See here, 8 greater than 7 means 8 is obviously greater than 4. No need to compare here. That is the default understanding. Okay, so since it is greater, now you increment a count value. So how you will increment count value? That means count plus is equal to 1 you should write in program. So count value becomes a 2 here. Then previous max, since 8 is the maximum for next element, now the previous maximum becomes 8 here. So that's why you execute this statement, then 8 becomes the previous max. Okay, so then go to the next element, 2. Okay, so 2 greater than 8. Now see, previous max changed here. 8 is now previous max. So 8 greater than, no. Okay, so fourth iteration false. Now go to fifth iteration. That means process the next element. Okay, so 9 greater than 8. Yes. Then execute these two statements. Count plus is equal to 1. Count value becomes now 3. Okay, so it becomes now 3. Then say previous max is equal to current element. That means now previous max becomes a 9. For the next element, 9 becomes the previous max element. Okay, so it is 9. So that's it. You reach the end of the array. Okay, then your loop stops. Your loop stops. Once you come out from the loop, now you just print the count value which is equal to our output. Got it? This is how you should devise the logic first. You should prepare logic yourself on paper. Okay, so once you derive such a logic, okay, so then you apply the same logic for the example 2. Okay, so quickly apply example logic, same logic for example 2. Okay, so these calculations you should do quickly. Okay, so second example contains the elements 3, 4, 5, 8 and 9. Okay, so I draw only 2 boxes. Okay, so count and count initially 0. Okay, so then previous max, these two only. Now we'll process fast. Previous max is also initially 0. Yes or no? These two lines. Right. So we'll process one by one. So first 3. Okay. So 3, I check with 3 greater than previous max 0. Yes. Okay. So count value becomes 1 here. Then this becomes a 3 here. Previous max becomes a 3 here. Okay. Right. So next process the next element. So what is the next element? 4 here. Okay. So 4 greater than previous max. Yes. So count value increases. Count becomes 2. And now 4 becomes the previous max. Okay. Then process the next element. 5 greater than previous max. Yes. Increment the count value. Count value becomes 3 now. Okay. So then 5 becomes the previous max. Then process the next element. 8 greater than 5. Yes. So increment the count value. Now count value becomes a 4. Okay. So count value becomes now 4. So then now 8 becomes the previous max. 8 becomes the previous max. Next process the next element. 9. 9 greater than previous max. Yes. Okay, so increment count value becomes 5, then 9 becomes the previous max. That's it, end of the array reached, stop here, then print the count value 5, which is same as 5. Got it? That means your logic is perfect, working perfectly. Now you convert this into coding. Convert the same thing in the form of instructions, write program for that. Okay, so today what I do is I tell you both ways of writing. Okay, so because many of the students are asking for Java code also. Okay, so I discuss Python code and also discuss Java code, and especially the very important part in solving these questions is reading the inputs properly. This you should know. Okay, so if you know how to reading inputs properly, okay, if you can understand this, then this logic conversion into code becomes very easy. Okay, because many students fail in reading the input. Okay, so input is provided in each line. Okay, so reading a new line, you should know. Sometimes the array may be, elements may be passed like this: 7, 4, 8, 2, 9 with spaces. First line contains number of elements, second line contains 5 numbers like this, separated with spaces. Okay, so in this case you need to read in a different way, and if each element is provided in a line, okay, then you should read this in a different way. These things you should understand. Okay, so today I will show you how to read the inputs properly. Okay, right? So what we do is first I am discussing the Python code, then next I discuss Java code also. Okay, don't worry. So what we need to do, first thing is number of elements in the array. Okay, so that we store in n. Okay, so int of input. This is the first line you should write. So input reads only one line. Please remember, input reads only one line. Okay, so since 5 is provided in first line, it reads 5. And always remember, in Python, input function, whatever it reads this input as a string. It reads as a string. Okay, 5 becomes a string. You need to convert this 5 into integer 5. That's why this you should pass to the integer function. Okay, so the first line contains int of input. Okay, so it converts 5 into integer type and returns that, and that we are catching in variable n here. Okay, so now n contains the number 5. Got it? Okay, so then what you need to do, and here another important observation to be made. Please remember. Okay, so all of you look at this. Many of you. Okay, so what many students do is they read the input and store all these values into an array. Okay, so they store all these values into array. Let me just tell you. Okay, just wait. Now I'll tell you the main mistake where students make in the examination. Okay, while even though your code is correct, okay, so why your code fails in some cases. Okay, so let me tell you. Just let me clear this. Okay, here I'll tell. So what happens means generally what you do is you read these values and store into an array. Okay, so that means what you do, you declare an array here. Okay, so you declare an array here and you store all the elements into the array. Like this, you store the elements into the array. Okay, so 74829, 74829, you'll store into the array. Okay, so here what happens means actually in the problem statement here the full constraints are not available. Okay, but in the real examination all the constraints will be provided to you. Okay, so you should be very careful. The problem with this kind of approach, okay, what happens means you are using an additional space here. Okay, so this array means you are using an additional space, extra space. Okay, so extra space of how much? N elements. Extra space of n elements, because size of the array is n now here. Okay, so array of size n, extra additional space you are allocating in the memory. But for your program, okay, so they provide some amount of memory and your program should fit within this memory and should run successfully by utilizing this memory only. Okay, so if you use an additional space which is beyond the size of this memory, okay, so then your code may not run properly. Okay, so that means the space complexity of your program becomes order of n here. Okay, so order of n also no problem, but if they haven't provided any additional space, then it becomes a problem. This you should keep in mind. Okay, so space complexity becomes a order of n. Okay, but it is always better have a space complexity of order of 1, constant space complexity. The meaning is don't use any additional space. Don't use any additional space. Okay, so here additional space, you may ask, sir, you are using additional space for these variables count, previous max. Okay, for these variables it is negligible. Okay, so they provide sufficient memory for storing values of those variables. Okay, so for count and previous max, for them they provide the memory. Okay, it is sufficient. Whatever memory is provided, it is sufficient. You can use such kind of variables in this. Okay, but if you use an additional array, okay, so in this program actually array of size 20 only they have mentioned maximum size, but sometimes it may ranges up to 10 to the power of 6. Okay, so then you are using additional space of 10 to the power of 6. Okay, so which may not be sufficient for your program. Okay, so this space complexity also you should consider. So that means without storing the elements, you should process as you read these numbers. Okay, so I'll tell you how to do such kind of processing without storing them. Got it? So your numbers are like this: 7, 4, 8 and 2, 9 available in each line. Okay, so now what I do, I need a variable called as a count. I store count is equal to 0. Then I declare one more variable, previous max is equal to 0. Okay, so now I run a loop to read all these elements. Okay, so for that what we require, you can run a for loop or you can run a while loop. Okay, so just for underscore in range of n, you can say for underscore in range of n in Python. Okay, so what it does here, okay, so range of n, okay, n value is 5, no, so it generates the numbers like 0 1 2 3 4. Okay, so that means it repeats for these 5 numbers. That means it repeats the loop for 5 times. So you can read all the 5 numbers. That's the main goal. No need of using any. This variable is not useful to us. That's why I have used underscore here. If had it been stored these numbers in the array, then here you should use variable I to keep track of these becomes indices. These numbers becomes the indices of the array in such case. Okay, but here it is not required to store these values, no. Okay, so now what I do, I read one by one from each line. So now I am reading the first number here. So how I can read the first number? I call it as element. Okay, so element is equal to int of input. Int of input. Okay, so input function reads the number 7, converts this into integer and stores in the variable called as a element. Okay, so now you got the element as we discussed previously. First element, okay, so you have element. What you need to do, you need to check with the previous max. This is what we discussed. Okay, so that is what we will do here. Now I check this with the previous max element. If element is greater than previous max, if it is greater than the previous max, okay, so that means the current element, okay, so the current element is greater than all its previous elements, prior elements. Okay, so that means we identified one such elements. Now you increment the count value. Now you say count plus is equal to 1. We encountered one such element. Okay, so now for the next element, the current element becomes the previous max. Okay, so now you can say previous max is equal to element. Now the element becomes the current element becomes the previous max. Okay, so you can see here, this is your previous max. Now it contains a 7. Okay, so this is your count value. Count value contains a 1 now. Okay, got it? So what happens? It goes up. It goes to the for loop here, reads the next number. Okay, so this is how it executes. Just look at here. Okay, so then reads the next number. So next number it reads because it is available in the next line. Input reads the next number 4. It okay, so 4 greater than previous max, 4 greater than 7. No, so this is not executed. This is executed only when the condition is true. Okay, so then it goes up and goes to the for loop here. So then enters the loop. Then int input reads the next number 8. It reads, stores in element. Okay, so 8 greater than previous max 7. Yes, then count becomes plus 1. So count becomes 2. Then previous max is equal to 8. 8 becomes the previous max. Then goes up. Okay, so then it repeats for this number. Okay, so reads the next number 2. It reads int input means 2. It reads element is now 2. 2 greater than 8. No, it won't execute. Goes up. Okay, so repeats for this number. So int input reads the next number 9. It reads. Okay, so stores in element greater than previous max, 9 greater than 8. Yes, count plus count becomes 3 here, previous max becomes 9 here. Okay, then goes up, then the range values over here, then automatically this loop terminates. Okay, so the loop terminates. So once you come out from the loop, what you need to do, you need to print the count value. Okay, so count, just print the variable count. Okay, and here while printing, one more tip I would like to provide it to you. Okay, so another tip I want to do, many students what they do is they print the output like this. Okay, so count of elements or some message they write here. Okay, so they write like this and then they print the count value here. Okay, so then on your output, then it prints like a count is equal to something like 3 it prints, but the actual expected output is just 3. This is your output and this is expected output, which are not matching here. These three are not matching, these two. Okay, so this is your actual output and this is the expected output here. Both are not matching because 3 count there is some text, even though your logic is correct. Okay, so it shows the public test case. Okay, so test case 1, it is just like test case 1. Here in the box it shows wrong. That means actual output and expected output are not matching. These things, when there is test case wrong mark it is showing, you should look at these two things especially. Okay, so what extra you are providing, other same numbers if they are displaying, but what extra characters, even if you provide any extra dot also, it won't match. Okay, so that's why these kind of text messages you should not write in the print directly. You should print the number like this. That's it. Got it? This is another important point to be remembered. Okay, so another important tip. And even some students also during the input also, okay, because this is a regular practice in your lab. Okay, so while input also they write like this input. Okay, so enter n value, they write like this, enter n value. Okay, so int of enter n value, n is equal to. Okay, so like this they write. Okay, so in such case what happens, uh, on the output console you will get this string printed on the screen. Okay, so then enter n value is not available on the output. This string is displayed. Okay, so actual output and your actual output and expected output both will not match again, even though you written the program correctly. Okay, because of these extra text it is not matching, then again it shows your test case failed. Okay, so these things you should avoid. Directly just read the input as it is and print whatever is asked in the same format you try to print. That's it. So let us execute this code, then we'll go to Java code, how to read input in Java for the same. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can type your doubts in the query meanwhile. So let us open online compiler. Yeah, this is there is one query, no option to download the application form which is available previously. Okay, this time it is online application form. You need to just fill all the details and submit. That's it. Okay, so once you submit, you get applied on so and so date, registered on so and so date. Okay, then when you track your application, so it shows that applied for drive. So if you get applied for drive, that's it, you have successfully applied. Okay, so there is no application to download, fill the details and again upload. Okay, it's an online application. Ajay, I think got the answer. Okay, so let us go to the compiler. Okay, so let us execute this. Right, so quickly we type the code. Okay, so first we need to read n value now. So input, right, so then we need to define count value 0. Okay, then previous max, we need to define previous max 0. Okay, then run the for loop. for underscore in a range of n. Okay, so element by element we should read now. So element int of input. So we are not storing in this code, we are not storing elements. Okay, so we are directly processing element by element, and if it is greater, then we are increment the count value. That's it. So that means your space complexity is order of 1, constant space complexity. Okay, so now you compare if your element is greater than previous max. Okay, so then increment the count value. So count plus is equal to 1, and then your previous max is equal to element. That's it. Okay, so once you come out from the loop, now you print the count value. So just print a count value. That's it. See how much time it took. If you work out the logic, hardly 5 to 10 minutes you can complete the code. Okay, so here you need to provide the input. Now if you run the code, now it is waiting for the input. Okay, so let us supply the input. So the input is 574829. Okay, so we'll supply 574829. Now it prints 3 here. You can see the output printed as a 3. Got it? Now let us run and we'll supply the second example. Okay, so it is 534589. So 5345 and 9. Okay, now it has printed 5 here. Okay, so because all elements are greater than their previous elements. Okay, so that's why it has printed 5 here. Okay, so this way you can write a code and execute the code. If public test cases are successful, then you should submit your code. Then your code will be tested against all private test cases. If it is successful, then it shows passed. Okay, so that means your code passed all test cases. Otherwise, it shows how many test cases it is failing and passed. Okay, so assume that there are 20 private test cases. Then it shows 15 by 20, passed 15 by 20. That means it passed 15, 20, 15 test cases, private test cases out of 20. So 5 test cases, your code is failing in 5 test cases. Then you should observe the constraints carefully and accordingly manage your code. See that it passes all the test cases. Okay, right. So let us look at the Java code for the same thing. So let us write a Java code for the same, because in many students, yeah, Varlakshmi, you can text the screenshot to my WhatsApp number. Okay, so I will guide you how to complete your application process. No need to worry. Okay, so it is online application. Once you log in with your CTDT ID, okay, so then it asks to fill your basic information and your academic details. Once you complete submit, then in our video it is clearly shown. Once you watch that video, okay, and try to complete the application process. No need to worry. Right, so let us write the Java code for the same. Okay, so because in Java, if you are good at Java, you need to know how to read such kind of input. Okay, right. So let me share the screen. Right, we'll write the Java code for this. So in Java, to read input from the console, okay, so what you need to do is you need to use scanner class. You need to use scanner class. Okay, so what you can do is, because everything in Java, and where is that scanner? So you need to import java.util.star. Okay, so then you define the class as main class. Okay, then inside you define your main method public static void main. Okay, so then say string args, right? Now inside this, now you create a object for the scanner class. Okay, so how do we create an object for the scanner class? Now you can say scanner sc is equal to new scanner. Okay, and here you pass the argument as system.in. Okay, so because you need to read from the standard input. Okay, pass the argument as system.in. This creates the scanner class object here. Okay, so then the very first thing is number of elements in the array. Why you need to read? Okay, so directly you read that n value int n is equal to, now you can read as a sc dot next int, the method available in the scanner class to read an integer from the console is next int. Okay, so just you say sc dot next int, call with the scanner class object sc dot next int. It reads the next integer, that is nothing but the first integer available 5. It reads and stores in a n. Now your n value is 5. Okay, so same is the case, whatever you require you define here. We require a variable called as a count value, so count is equal to 0. Then similarly we require a variable called as a previous max. Okay, so previous max is equal to 0, right? So then you run the loop here. Same, you run the loop. Only thing is, how to run the loop we should know in Java. For I is equal to 0. Okay, so then I less than, okay, so I less than number of elements n are given now, so n here, then say I plus plus. Okay, so run this loop here. So what you need to do, you need to read each element now one by one. So int element is equal to, so now you should say sc dot next int. Okay, so it reads the next integer like 7. Okay, 3 2 or something, whatever is there, 7 it reads. Okay, so that's 7. Now you need to compare it with the previous max. No, same logic is same. Okay, so logic won't change, logic is same. Now you compare. If element is greater than previous max, if element is greater than previous max, what you need to do, you need to increment the count value. Okay, so count plus is equals to 1. Okay, so now you can say previous max is equal to element. Okay, so I need to use semicolon here. That's it. Okay, so this is your for loop. Your for loop runs, and once you come out from the for loop, what you need to do, you need to print the count value. Okay, so how do you print after coming out from the for loop? Okay, so just you print here system dot out dot println. Okay, so don't print any extra characters, print the variable count. That's it. Okay, so now close the main function here. Okay, so I'm closing the main function, then close the class here. That's it. So this is the way how you can write a Java code. Always it is better to write your code on piece of paper. Okay, check the correctness of your code, then type on the system. This way you can develop your coding skills. Okay, so most of the students, they start typing the code on system. Okay, and they don't even understand which variable we required, what variable is taken for which purpose. Okay, so these things you should work out on paper. Then only you can check the correctness of your program easily. So quickly, let us execute this code and I'll show you even our Java uh, code also works fine. Okay, so let us go to Java compiler and type this code. Hardly it takes 2 to 3 minutes of time. So let us open the Java compiler. Just a minute. Yes. So hope you can see the Java compiler. Now we'll quickly type this code and so here what we required? We required a scanner class object to be created. SC is equal to new scanner. Why I'm writing the code and then typing? Okay, because it becomes a repetitive uh, watching of the code and it becomes easy for you and you can remember these statements easily and you can regenerate at the time of exam or while practicing also you can regenerate these lines of code easily. Okay, so while writing the code how you should think. Okay, so these things I would like to uh, tell you. Okay, so mainly I want to focus on those things. So previous max is equal to 0. Okay, so then run a loop here for, so this is Java code, otherwise I'll get errors here. Okay, so for int I is equals to 0. Okay, then I less than n here, so n value I should read now immediately here, so that I'm missing here. So I should say int n is equal to sc dot next int. Okay, so n value I read here, then this is for loop, then say I plus plus. So read the element here, so int element is equal to sc dot next int. Okay, then compare it. If element is greater than previous max, okay, so then you need to increment the count value. Count plus is equal to 1. Count plus is equal to 1. Then your previous max, okay, so should be equal to the element. Okay, so that's it. Now this is end of if statement, this is end of first statement. Okay, so once you come out from the first statement, what you need to do, you need to print system dot out dot println. Okay, so then say count. That's it. Okay, so this is end of main and this is end of your class. That's it. Run the code. Yeah, so cannot find symbol scanner. Okay, so we forgot to import the uh, java data util dot star. Okay, so import this java data util data star here. Okay, Yeah, so these things int I should declare int. That's why they are. It is showing that all these are not declared. Okay, so again run the code. So it is running your code. This is the problem with the online compilers. So if their server is down, it takes time to compile the code and read the input. So because all your code should go to their server. Okay, so then run there and send the result again to your local system. Okay, so that's why it takes time. There is no way to stop your code, interrupt your code in this. That is the problem with program is. So what I do is, meanwhile, I'll open another online Java compiler tab. Okay, so right, you can see here. So let me just copy paste the code from here. I think this entire thing I need to copy. Done. I copied the code. Okay, so this is our standard input and let us run the code. It is waiting for the input. What we do is we'll provide the input 5, 7, okay, 3, 2, not okay. So something like 8, 9 will provide. Okay. Time limit exceeded. Okay, so that's what online compilers. Okay, so they provide a limited time for execution of your code. Okay, so this time what I do is I provide the input on this. Okay, so it is 73289. So I'll run the code and now you can see the output because input is available. Now you can see the output displayed as a 3 here. Okay, so you can see the output displayed as a 3 here. So this is how you can work out problems on arrays. As many problems as possible on arrays and strings you work out. Okay, and because easy to first question will be easy to medium difficulty level. Okay, mostly on arrays and strings. Okay, so that's why I'm dealing with many questions, previous questions asked on arrays and strings. Okay, so in our next session, we'll try to solve a problem related to strings. What kind of questions previously asked on strings? Okay, so we'll see such kind of questions and we will try to solve them. Okay, so meanwhile, you can practice all previously solved questions from our YouTube channel. Okay, so all uh, important questions were discussed and solved. Their Python solutions are also available. So if you have any queries, you can type your queries, doubts in the comment section of this video. So I will reply to all your queries. And is any coding related queries if you have in mind. Okay, so you can just type all such your queries in the comment section of this video, and we will discuss such questions, and I'll try to resolve all your doubts related to coding. So friends, that's all for today. If you found this video useful, so please like the video and also share this video. And if you are new to the channel, so please subscribe to my channel and also turn on the bell icon for more such coding updates. Happy learning, happy coding. Thank you all.